I think I tithed like $21. That's how much I had made at that point. And I tithed, and I remember putting that check in the offering plate, and I said, this is all I have. This is it. And things just changed.
Imagine waking up one morning and discovering your bank account at almost zero. You didn't spend any money, but the money is gone. This is what happened in Cyprus in 2013 when the European Union decided to take money from the accounts of Cyprus citizens in order to bail out the country. This isn't something that happens somewhere else. Bank failure is a real and present danger in the U.S. Just look at what happened with America's 16th largest bank. Depositors tried to get their funds out of Silicon Valley Bank until regulators swooped in and shut down the bank on March 10th. 2 days later, New York Regional Bank, Signature Bank, also failed. What's been lost in the headlines is that Silvergate Bank failed first on March 8th. To prevent an all-out bank run and contain a possible bank failure contagion, the FDIC seized the assets of these banks. Depositors couldn't get their money out. Don't rely on the banks to keep your family safe. Be prepared for the unexpected with My Patriot Supply. They offer a wide variety of emergency preparedness supplies, including food, water, first aid kits, and survival gear. Don't wait till it's too late. Be prepared today with My Patriot Supply. Visit localinsidershow.com/emergency food.
My next guest is a Mansfield High School graduate who earned his Bachelor in Science at John Brown University. He then achieved his Sigma 6 certification from Villanova University. He then worked for the Outdoor Recreation Company of America, or ORKA, where he was VP of Marketing. After seeing a need for news in often overlooked areas of the Arkansas River Valley, he started the Resident Press in 2015. Today, he and his team cover the news in over 7 school districts. The now Resident News Network covers the gambit of news and information for the River Valley, where they publish only the facts, and it's never sensationalized. Please welcome Jason Baggett.
Welcome to the Local Insider Podcast, the show about everyday people who make a big difference.
Jason Baggett, welcome to the show.
Hey, buddy. I was glad to help you out in any ways possible. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, for the people who don't know who you are, kind of tell them what your story is, how you started Resident Press, and what you guys do now and what it's turned into.
Sure. So it's kind of it's a neat story, and it's one that it started kind of from the heart. The local newspaper had gained some interest in my mom and dad, who bought a drugstore back in 1976 here in Mansfield, and the drugstore burned down a year later. It burned to the ground. So fast forward, 20, 30 years, they were very instrumental in the community on all levels. Mm-hmm. And so after my dad had passed away, my mom had passed away sometime before my dad, the paper said, we want to do a story about your dad, his entrepreneurial ventures and his mindset and, the drugstore, obviously. And I said, well, the only way that I feel comfortable doing that is if you included my mom. And for some reason, they weren't interested at that point. And I said, I'm not going to give the interview. Mm-hmm. I thought it was distasteful. So 2 years later, they come back to me and they said, "Hey, we want to do a story on you and your wife's soccer team." And the soccer team is something that we had done for our youngest son, Grayson, and his friend Chandlin.
Mm-hmm.
So I said the only way that I will allow this, because they're youth and I wanted their 5 minutes of fame to be done, correctly and professionally and just done right.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I want to write the article. I'll take the photo and all you got to do is copy and paste it. And I said, just give me a heads up on when the article runs, but just give me your word you're not going to rewrite it. And they did. They gave me their word. And I was actually out of town when the article ran, and a good friend of mine, actually it was Chandlin's dad, called me, and he said, "Jason, you're not going to be happy." And I said, "What's up?" And he said, I'm reading the article and I think they rewrote it. So he took a digital photo of it and emailed it to me. I read it and I couldn't believe what I was reading. And Brian, it overcame me. I wasn't mad. I mean, I was angered. I wasn't mad, but I was disappointed. Not that they had lied to me, but they had taken something from these two boys, their teammates, and all of the kids who played soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as the article was about them, we made it about the team, because they were, I mean, I don't want to say they were nothing without the team, but what they had accomplished was it was amazing, but they couldn't have those accomplishments without the team. Right. And it just, man, I lost a lot of sleep over it. I told my wife, Leslie, I said, we've got to do something about this. And I really didn't know what we needed to do, but I knew we needed to do something. Mm-hmm. And so I prayed about it. I really went into a different kind of prayer, like, Lord, this is on my heart. This is something that I can't get off. What's the purpose in this? And I had realized that this newspaper was the only newspaper. It was their only way of getting, it was the only way of getting information in what I call bedroom communities, mm-hmm. outside of, the larger town like Fort Smith.
Right.
And so I started doing research and I started making phone calls, and I was very blessed with friends who had been editors in chief or publishers or, all the fancy titles, from magazines to different publications in the outdoor industry. Mm-hmm. And then it circled back around, and I told my wife, I said, I think I realized what we need to do. I said, I think we need to start a website or maybe a Facebook page or group or something, focusing on the good news, what's happening here in the bedroom communities where people live. There's nothing like that. Mm-hmm. And so from a branding aspect, I was taught years and years ago, you always start with a white piece of paper and a black pen. You don't add colors. You just start writing names. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And so resident, I took one word, which was the word of the newspaper, and I put all the different words that was similar or completely different from that word on one column and newspaper on the other. Well, Resident Press just kept coming back. It's like when I wrote those two letters or those two words down, each letter was in bold font. God was telling me, hey, this is the path. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you I wasn't scared. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do or what we were doing. So in my experience, the best way to get over fear is to jump in. You just got to start. That's where a lot of dreams and aspirations just don't take flight, because people just don't start.
100%.
And so we started with a meager little Facebook page, and it gained a little traction. People were, they were asking me all the time, man, what is this? What are you trying to do? And so I told them, I said, well, we really don't know, but here's the end goal. The end goal is just to kind of celebrate what's going on in our community, the good stories, the good community focused news. A year later, I realized that we had another problem to solve, and that was trust. Trust in the news is something that it's just not there. And I told my wife, I said, we've got a second problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I can fix it, but I'm sure going to put my stamp on it. And it started with schools. And I went around, I visited with every school, I think within about a 30-mile radius, outside, bedroom communities only, nothing in Fort Smith. And it all boiled down, it resonated to the exact point of where we started, misspelling children's names.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothered me. And I said, I'm gonna change that. So we jump all in, and we never published anything that didn't have at least two forms of eyes on it, saying, this is how that child's name is spelled.
Mm-hmm.
So in my back pocket, I really didn't know the blessing that I had waiting on me. And I had been raised with a family, good friends of my parents, and their youngest daughter, she is a, I don't know what the correct terminology for it is, but she lives, eats, and sleeps news. And I told her, I said, this is what I've got going on. She's like, oh, I watch it. I like it on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we're fixing to launch the Resident Press News, website. And she's like, okay. And it took me some time to kind of gain her trust, because she had been, dealt some wrong in her life in the news. And I never begged her. I just said, I need help. I mean, this thing is growing every day, and I can't keep up. I'm either going to have to start hiring people, or I'm going to have to walk away and just quit. So Tammy Teague, who's our current publisher and editor, come on, and she was a breath of fresh air, but she was an absolute blessing from heaven above. She told me, she showed me not what we were doing wrong, but the right way to do it.
Right.
And I just told her, I said, Tammy, this is yours. Take over. I'll be whatever you need to be. We have to do this right. We have to do it for the kids. We have to do it for the community members, the businesses, the schools, everybody who is not only following us, but everybody who learns about us. I want us to know that first, that this is it's faith-based. We started this with our faith, and we're going to do this with our faith. I believe God gave me the problem to solve. He gave me the solution to boot.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to glorify him through this. And she's like, I'm all in. And so we started hiring. We hired a sports writer. We hired a lifestyles writer. And the website just continued to change. And then one day, Tammy said, Jason, I've got an idea. And I've always worked or had the belief that if you're going to employ someone, trust their instincts. And if you can't trust them, you don't need them working with you. Because I've said from the beginning, we don't have employers. We have a family. We have a team. And I trust each one of those so deeply, because their opinion matters and they see things differently than I do. But she said, we need to go into print. And I laughed. I said, there's no way, print is dying. And she said, Jason, I feel that this is one segment to our news that people are not getting. And so, Brian, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And I prayed about it. I prayed, and I mean, God was like silent in it. He was like, and now I look back, and I kind of believe, and I do believe that God was silent in that because he was waiting to see what I was going to do. And so I met with Tammy over lunch one day, and I said, let's do it. And so we took several newspapers, and we found the size that we thought we wanted or needed, because we talked to a lot of people about this. And the number one thing that come back was the newsprint was too small. I can't read it. or it's not in color, or it's not in a manageable way where we can read it, gripping, with your hands and arms.
Mm-hmm.
So we designed the newspaper around that. And about 3 months later, we printed our first newspaper, and it was released in May of that year. We do things unorthodox. We don't do things as a lot of big companies do, or, maybe a lot of businesses do. We took these newspapers and went to a senior citizen center, a local senior citizen center around lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
We had 65 copies. We walked out with none. But I literally witnessed men and women clinging to this newspaper as if it was something from their childhood.
Awesome.
In fact, one guy shook my hand, and he had tears rolling down his face. And that shook me. I mean, it showed me the impact that the news has on people, and even the newspaper.
Absolutely.
And so I walked outside. I hugged Tammy, and I said, "Tammy, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I believed in you. I just didn't believe in what that this was the right thing that we needed to do." And she said something very important to me. She said, "Jason, sometimes you just got to step out in faith. God is silent. We just have to step out in faith, and God will, He'll bless us for that."
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did He. We went from selling out 65 newspapers, which is all we really could afford. That's all the newsprint that we could afford for the first run of the newspaper. Sounds, meaningless now, but that's something I'm proud of. We stepped out in our faith, not only physically, but financially. And I look back now, and it's, it is something that I do talk about, and it is kind of funny, but it's part of our story. And that part of our story should illuminate people's paths if they've got something that they're dreaming about, or, that they're aspiring to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And, so anyways, kind of fast forward between there and now, we had several different websites. We had multiple social networks under different brands. Resident Press, we had Resident Press Logan County edition. Then we had the Greenwood Resident Facebook, and we had all these different Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams and the websites. And it was overwhelming for all of us. So we all met, and I had the idea. I really felt that we needed to bring all of this under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Resident News Network. It took us about 3.5 months to consolidate all the photos, the data, everything that we had accumulated since day one under one website, one social network. And I want to tell you, I would do that again, because it's paid dividends for us for efficiency. Having a seamless channel of content, and the effectiveness of it. People don't get lost like they did, because they would say, "Hey, are you, is the Greenwood Resident, is it part of Resident Press?" And you've got a competitor now. It's called Resident News Network. And it was kind of funny, but it took some time for people to realize what we were doing. And so that was me. I was kind of the brand ambassador. I'd have to go around telling people, this is why we did it, and this is why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And people now, they totally respect it, and they understand it. But I'm going to tell you, it's every day is new, and we have met some amazing people through this. I tell people all the time, we're fun employed, because we thoroughly enjoy what we do. We have impacted people's lives in ways I would have never thought that would be possible through this. I've got to see high school athletes get college scholarships because of sports articles or stats that we have, or a photo caught their eye. We've even had high school seniors take their senior photos in our shirts or apparel. Mm-hmm. And it blows me away. But probably the most satisfying thing, and it's very, very simplistic, but the thank you cards that we get each week from our readers, it's Brian, I'll tell you, it'll choke you up. It'll stop you where you're standing, because these letters, they're handwritten and they're so heartfelt. It just, again, it proves to you that you're on God's path. You know that you're doing what you're called to do, and you're doing it the best that you can, and always try to better that. So that's pretty much our story in a nutshell. And we're still evolving. I mean, we still got things that we're going to be trying and testing, but it's definitely fun.
Well, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, like, don't you get tired of the negativity? In today's culture, in our social climate, there is always critics. There's always the haters, and there's always people that they're going to come at you hard. And we look at that as an opportunity to be human. We don't argue back and forth.
Right.
We let them state their cause, and then we tell them why we had to do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if there's a wreck, or let's say that there's just something of a life-threatening matter, we don't publish license plates. We don't publish names. We have to be very general in terms, because we don't want to bring more tragedy to a tragedy.
Right.
And that's something that we do personally, because we've had something, in our lives that gave us that perspective. And even though we do monitor our social networks very closely, we still let people voice their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can't grow, I believe you learn more from people, their true opinions. There's something that maybe we could do better, or something that we haven't thought about.
Sure.
So, yeah, we always keep our ears open, and we're always trying to do what our readership or listenership needs from us.
And that goes back to what you were saying with your wife, Leslie, the trust in media. That's the difference between what you're doing and what the corporate conglomerates do, where if you have an issue, there's no place to redress your grievances. They just don't listen, because they have all the money. They have corporate sponsorships, and they don't care what you say, frankly. They have a narrative to put out, and they'll do it the way they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've had so many different opinions on that. When we actually changed our brand, there was a lot of people that thought we got bought out. And there was some people ridiculed us for changing our name. And I was very vocal. Now, there was nights I just didn't sleep. I had to answer emails and all kinds of direct messages and Facebook posts and things like that. And you're not ever going to do something worthy without something criticizing you. And not everybody likes us. And that's not my job. My job as the owner of this, and no different than Tammy's job in the publishing, or Jim and Adam and everybody else doing what they do with sports or lifestyle. Our job is to give you the correct information and let you form an opinion on it. We don't try and sway or sensationalize topics or headlines or content based on us trying to sway your opinion towards something.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. Here's the facts. You form your opinion of it. Now, one thing that we are very adamant on, and I know a lot of people have come at us about this. We don't allow cuss words on our post threads, mm-hmm. which is one of the reasons why on our website we don't have a format or a way to reply to the article on the website. You have to reply or state your opinion in a reply to the post on social media.
Mm-hmm.
It dirties the conversation, and I don't want a sixth grader who's looking for his or her photo from a basketball game to go across some article and see nothing but just blatant curse words.
Right.
That's my opinion, and that's my stance on it. And being privately owned, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I stand firm in that, just like I do with our faith. I'm very vocal on that. I'm not perfect in it, but I don't hide it.
Right.
And with that being said, you're going to get a lot of support. But the negative side, it always gives you an opportunity to show people that there is a difference in what we do. It's not the corporate mentality. You're not going to hit just endless, automatic replies. You send us a message or call us, someone is going to reply pretty dang quick.
Mm-hmm. When you first built your website, it was just you and Tammy at that point, right? Or was it just you?
No, it was just me and my wife.
So how did you approach that? Had you ever built a website before, or?
I had. So my background is in marketing in the outdoor industry, specifically fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had, years ago, I left a corporate job, changed that job to another corporate job, and that corporate job actually, it went away after 6 months. So as a husband and a dad of a 4.5, 5-month-old, I believe, I had to find something. And I went all in on learning what I, wanted, what I could on building websites.
Mm-hmm.
And my first business, my first website actually got hijacked because I just didn't know enough. I didn't know enough about security and online security or even servers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told myself at that point, I was never going to get in a position to have my livelihood taken from me. So I immersed myself in understanding websites, website design, security, and I built the first one. In fact, if you go to our website right now, it has a lot of the footprint of the original design.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did it all. I mean, I created email addresses, created the logo, anything that was on that original website was done 100% by me or my wife.
Sure. And then from that point to the point where you had your first hire, what was the process of monetizing that website to build the capital to be able to hire somebody to help out and expand your, scale your business?
Well, it's based on the premise of tithing.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a point, Brian, where it was either sink or swim. And swim, buy a boat and have someone help me row.
Mm-hmm.
I had went pretty much to a point every week of figuring out a mathematical calendar of saying this is how much time I can devote to specifically talking to people about advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't know any other way of financially supporting this website any other way. And I think it was a Friday. I think it was a Friday night after a football game. I had told my wife, I said, I've got to do something different. And so that Sunday at church, I went back and it was like, I think I tithed like $21. That's how much I had made at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I tithed and I remember putting that check in the offering plate and I said, this is all I have. This is it. And things just changed. It just changed. I think God seen the tears. I think God seen the heartache, but God also seen the work and the need.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, we never look back. We've never, we never rest on our laurels and we don't have the ego to go along with it. We work hard for every dime we get and we go up and above for our advertisers. We try. And then there's just a lot of times where we just can't because of maybe conflicts or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just that stepping out in faith and believing we were doing what we needed to be doing, what we were called to do.
So you said you started in the outdoor industry, specifically with fishing.
Yes.
It kind of leads me up to my next question, which is, when you're not working, what do you do for fun? Do you still like to fish, or do you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you can't find me anywhere, you can find me pretty much at a boat ramp or with our son's sporting, his athletic endeavors, which just ended, or our granddaughter. She's an up and coming rodeo star. She's going to be on a horseback somewhere. That's pretty much it. I spend a lot of time outdoors in a boat chasing those greenfish. I can't get enough of it.
Mm-hmm. What makes you smile when you wake up in the morning?
I'm thankful that God gave me another day. I learned that several years ago. We had a tragedy in our family, and I had just come out of a really bad time in my life, and I just had to do some soul searching, Brian. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember going outside, and I always walk outside in the mornings, and I love to hear the birds sing and just breathe that fresh air. And I just walked out into my yard, and I just thank God. I said, thank God for this day, because that day was not going to be a fun day.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, thank you for giving me the strength. Thank you for giving me the shoulders to carry the weight for which I'm about to carry. And ever since then, I wake up, I thank the Lord for another day. And after that, I hit the ground running. I always tell my son I love him, that I'm proud of him, that he's the man. And a lot of times I get to talk to my granddaughters as her and her mama go to the work, or go to where she goes for the day. But that's it. Yeah, that's what makes me smile every day.
I'm seeing a pattern here that in my research in entrepreneurship, there's a saying that Isaac Newton had. It was, if I see further, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. So
absolutely,
that's kind of the premise of why I built this show, is to get the stories of the giants, the people that built the things that we see in our community that are successful, the successful people, and the people that have the passion. That I'm not talking about the hand-me-down people that it was built for them. I'm talking about the people that
right.
the people that
Right.
built it from
Yes.
From the ground up. So I'm seeing how you started, and you started with you saw that there was a problem that needed to be solved, and it wasn't your problem necessarily. In the beginning it was, but you knew that if you were having the issue, obviously many others were, and you wanted
absolutely
you wanted to solve that issue, and that's the first step. And then the next step is the trial by fire, which you went through, and where you arrive at and how you succeed is exactly what you said, through gratitude.
Yes, absolutely.
After the trial by fire, you're grateful for every day. And when you're coming from a place of gratitude, there's no amount of evil or hate or bad fortune or whatever you want to call it that can take that away from you, and you persevere through gratitude.
Mindset is the biggest strength I think anybody could have in your physical form. And that's something that we get tested on a lot. And I've been very fortunate, Brian, to have great entrepreneurs in my life, starting with my dad, my mom, but friends of the family or friends that I've garnered through, just life. And it all boils down, everybody's like, oh, it's what you think. And mindset is, but there's an underlying tone to every success. There were many failures.
Mm-hmm.
And those failures create the person that you're going to be. Now, I'm not going out there and I'm not going to wish anybody to fail. But failures is a relative term. It could be someone hijacking your website. It could be someone, just doing something from a catastrophic measure towards your business or your idea, your brand, or whatever. It's how you pick yourself up and move on. And I think and I don't want to segue here, but I think one of the things that really taught me that was we lost an advertiser years ago. And this was something that was just totally out of our hands. And I never begged them. I knew the financial impact it was going to take on us, but I just believed that this was purposeful. And so sometime later, the advertiser called back and they asked me and said, "Well, we've got an idea. We want to kind of work with you now." And I had to. It was a test of integrity. It was a test of morals and ethics. And I said, "That's just not a good fit for us." I said, "I can't advertise something that I don't believe in."
Mm-hmm.
And that one thing gave us something, and I don't know what that something is, but whatever happened from that was immeasurable. Whatever that ad space was gonna run them, it would have been pennies compared to what was ultimately given to us.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested in no matter what space that you're in life, or what role or what job or career. But ultimately, you have to close your eyes at night and say, did I do a good job today at what I was called to do? Did I give enough effort? Did I give the maximum effort? And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't wake up, gracious for another day.
Mm-hmm.
They wake up and they're worried about getting their coffee, and they're worried about getting something to eat, and they're worried about getting their kids at the door. I've just taken a slower approach to life, and that pays dividends both in my personal life and my work life. I don't, God first, family second, then everything else after.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when we're out and about, I'm only the news guy if I'm wearing a badge. Other than that, I'm Grayson's dad at a sporting event, or I'm Leslie's husband at one of her events, or I'm PJ's J-Paw at one of her rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you're right. The gratitude it has to be a part of that bedrock.
When you were talking about the adversity side of things and we were talking about going through the fire, it reminds me of a story that happened it was reported about Thomas Edison. I wasn't there, so I can't verify it, but
okay.
He built one of his first big plants. I don't know what he was constructing, whether it be something to do with General Electric or whatever, but it caught fire, and it was a huge building, and it was, just, there was no saving it. Of course, fighting fires wasn't a really, there wasn't a lot of technology for it back in that time anyway.
Sure.
And his son came out, and he was crying, and he looked down at his son, and he said, "Go get your mother and bring her out here now." And he said, "Why? She's going to be devastated." He said, "She will never get the chance to see a fire this size in her life."
Wow.
So he had failed so many times. He'd been through it enough to know that this wasn't the end. His son that was the first failure his son had ever seen. He thought it was over. He thought they were done for. Yeah. And he took a moment to be grateful for what he was seeing. He would never see a fire of that magnitude in their life again.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I've been there too myself. I can't divulge too much on this, but we print our newspapers very differently than what most people think we do, and what most other people believe how we print them. So when you're an entrepreneur, you got to wear many hats. Mm-hmm. One day you may be your marketing team. One day you may be your sales team. And maybe throughout the day you wear 20 different hats. Well, I'm a very hands-on guy. I want to know if something breaks, how to fix it. And I was there. I was watching the fire one day with our printing machine, and I was just so burnt out. And Tammy and my wife, they can both tell you, I kept the tools in my truck because that's how much this thing was breaking down. Mm. And we had to get the paper out because people, I'm going to tell you, If you really want to make somebody mad, you do not get their paper on, that Tuesday or that Wednesday. They will call you, and I promise you, they will let you know. But I come to resolve that this is it. I'm going to be a repairman. And I prayed over that machine so many times, and finally I walked out of the office one day and said, Lord, there's got to be a better way. Okay, I'm tired. I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube, but I was a YouTube professional watching these videos on how to repair this thing. And again, God showed me His way and His will for that. And now we're so much better off than where we were then. And that wasn't just but a short time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Sometimes you have to look at that fire and just be unshakable. You just get to a point where it just doesn't bother you in the form of anger. It hits you at a deeper level. I think when people like myself early on, when I wasn't unshakable, anger was the first emotion that hits you, and anger does nothing good.
Right.
You got to get to the root of the problem and get back to work. And I think that's what you were talking about when he said, go get your wife. Let's enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's an enjoyable moment, but let's enjoy what we're witnessing.
Right.
Because if better things are to come, we're never going to see a fire like this.
Right.
And we're going to be hardened to this. So let's enjoy it for the moment. Let's smile. Let's be gracious and thankful and move on.
I want to take a step back to the advertiser that you had to turn away because of your principles. Another common thread that I see in successful people is, when they stay true to their principles, it always pays off in the end. Well, it's the story of Judas, in the silver. You can get the silver, but in the end, you end up taking your own life. It's the story's repeated many times in history of people who do that, and it's only when you have enough experience in failure that you see, that these principles, they're not ideas that are some woo woo, like, yeah, they're good and I'm doing it because that's the right thing to do. You do it because you know that that's the only way, and that's and that knowing is really the only way that you're going to be able to overcome the urge to take that silver, because everything that looked shiny, and it looks like it's going to be really good, it's all a test. It's a test on your principles, like you said, that everything is, I can't remember what the term you used, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there seems to be an order of things happen, the way things happen in these success stories. And there's always the Judas point. My next question is, what's next for Jason and the Resident News Network?
Yeah, that's something we continue to ask ourselves every day. We like to be very flexible, and we like to think that we're flexible. We don't, when one of our staff or our team, our family has an idea, we have an ongoing, message system, and we flag it because we come back. Well, we have to be flexible because we believe that we're always trying to cater to the next age group of readership. And we want those now kids to grow up having the understanding that they have an alternative for news. Not everybody cares what's going on in the world. There's a huge percentage of people that only care about what's happening in their county or their town. So we have to be flexible in the premise that we have to reach those, but we still have to reach those that we've always reached, and then those that we're still trying to reach. So our newspaper is expanding. We're still expanding coverage area in that. We have a podcast, which we're still trying to find our feet on. We added TikTok, which is something we're we're struggling with, but we're trying to see the light of day. Our next big thing is really what's going to happen when we meet someone and either they're angered at something that we've done or we didn't do, and that sparks an idea that no one else has thought about. I'm really good about listening to people. I've never cared if they're giving me attaboys or they're just chewing me up one side and down the other. There's value on both sides.
100%.
I tend to learn more from those that are angered because we've touched them on an emotional level that they feel that they have to tell us. So I really don't know. News is something that's changing every day. There's a lot of different things that are out there in the marketplace, so to speak. One is crowdsourcing news, which we are testing right now. Not in a very high level. We're doing it on a low level because crowdsourcing it can be a bear to manage, because that's one of the things that we take very high level of pride in, is especially if there's I'm just going to say a catastrophic event, whether it's a wreck or a house fire or whatever. We always direct people first where it's at in general terms, not specific addresses, and then the attention to first responders, paramedics, firefighters, police, their safety. We want them to go home to their families at the end of the day as well. So crowdsourcing, I think, is going to be something that we really have to have a lot of eyes on, and we have to put a lot of effort in to do it and do it correctly for it to carry our brand.
So when you say crowdsourcing, to let people know, is that like citizen journalists, like people just that are on the scene? Everybody's got a phone, so
absolutely. Everybody's got a smartphone these days. They can take a photo, they can upload it to where the destination. This is what's happening right here. But there again, we have to make sure and be mindful that they, that they're considerate to someone, whether it involves a family member or a loved one, a friend, or so forth. Because not a lot of people understand that. That's one of our biggest fears in crowdsourcing. But it's gaining momentum, and that's something that I think is the next big thing in our world. I think TikTok, can come and go. You just never know what's going to happen with that.
Right. So the predecessor to the crowdsourcing would be like freelance photographers or freelance journalists, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you're crowdsourcing, do people get paid to do this, or is it totally volunteer?
I think initially it's looked at as volunteer. I don't think that you're going to find someone that wants to just drive around on a day-by-day basis and just look for things to happen for free. I think those kind of people should be paid, because it either should be paid by photo or by time or mileage or something like that. Because that's something we're very adamant in, is that if we use your photo, we're going to pay you for it. It's just something we've always believed in that. If you, or at least at the very least, credit you for that photo. Right.
Unlike some other businesses who I've seen do that with your content.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something that, oh man, it gets me riled up when, they say I forget the exact term, the greatest form of flattery is imitation, or I can't remember exactly words, but man, I'm going to tell you, it just seems at one point I spend so much time in just defending us, and I don't do that anymore. I do it to a certain level, but I don't spend as much time as I do, or as I once did, because it can just be overwhelming. People know what we're about by now. They know who we are. They know that we're going to do things at a very high level, and we let those people take care of it. And we have such an amazing readership. We have an amazing listener. Just the support as a whole is absolutely amazing. And I can't thank them enough, because they go to bat for us. They defend us in ways that we just never could.
What's the most important thing people should know about you?
Personally or professionally, it would have to be loyalty. I'm loyal. I learned that from my mother and my dad. They were just amazing people. I mean, and your parents should always be amazing people, but I was just absolutely blessed with a mother and a dad that showed loyalty on so many different levels. And when I say loyalty, I mean, first, to my faith, to my family and to the business and to those who count on you for doing things right. Because I think if without the loyalty, the personal loyalty to create and maintain a product, there's also trust.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a position where we could go out there. Now, I'm going to say this because on April 1st, we do like to have a little fun. So there's some things that happen on April 1st that if you watch our website and our social media, don't believe, believe about 75% of the stuff you see on April 1st. We like to have fun, but we're in a position to change perspective, to change people's lives. And that loyalty to them on a personal level bleeds through to a professional level. And then there's the trust, but the underlying deal is respect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people realize just how many hours our staff goes in to doing something correctly. For example, there's been many times where we will hold an article until we get the exact information. And we do not delete, we edit. And
Right.
what I mean by that is if we have, let's say, alternating forms of information, we leave the original and we will say edited below
Mm-hmm.
to current information. We don't want people thinking we're perfect. We're not.
Right.
We want people to know that we're humans. We're going to correct it, but we're going to stay transparent. So kind of a long-winded way around loyalty, but we're loyal. We're loyal to business-wise, our advertisers. We're not going to allow conflict. We're not going to allow something to go against our morals, our ethics. We're going to be loyal to the schools that trust us with their kids, the parents with our kids, the communities that draw to us because they believe in what we do. And that's where loyalty starts and ends with us.
Very well said. And I do want to be mindful of your time. We're running up on the hour here. But I just want to end off with, we look to you as a mentor for the next generation. And my next and final question would be, who is a person, or it could be more than one person, that has influenced you the most to be who you are today?
Well, I've spoken a lot about my mom and dad. They were such great influences to me as their son. They influenced communities. They influenced a lot of people. And there's a lot of times, still to this day, I'll run into someone, they hear my last name and like, oh, were you kin to so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. And they'll tell me a story about my mom or my dad and something I didn't know. They showed me how to not give up, how to believe in what you're doing and understand you're going to have bad days.
Right.
But ultimately, when you're self-employed, people's like, oh, I'd be self-employed. I'm not going to work for anybody. When you're self-employed, you work for those who lean to you, whether it's advertisers, your readership. You're always working for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we go above and beyond. It's not because we're trying to be somebody we're not. That's just who we are.
Right.
It's who we are as people. It's who we are in the news. Another person, to answer your question, sorry, I was trying to segue way into another
no, you're fine.
Discussion there, but I've got a friend of mine. His name is Robert Bearden, and this guy is a self-made man. him and his wife share a lot of elements that my mom and dad had, and which have bled down to me and my wife, and even our son Grayson. He showed me a different perspective of relationships from business partners, whether it's advertisers or vendors or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he also showed me that ultimately it's how you treat people, whether it's going to come back to you, how it's going to come back to you. We would spend hours upon hours driving into the oil and gas fields of Oklahoma or Texas just so he could take them a box of steaks, just saying thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being loyal to me. And both him and my dad have shown me two different perspectives on business. Both are right, and both of them I lean on those lessons still to this day. But he's still plays a major factor in my life. Him and his wife Jo live in Fort Smith, and we spend a lot of time together, whether it's on the phone or in person. But I think if anybody's out there listening, you need to find those people, and I truly believe God gives you those people. They're rungs on the ladder,
mm-hmm.
and my son has seen that, and I've seen that as my dad's son, or a friend to Robert. Your inner circle can help you or it can hurt you, and I've always been very, very close knit with my inner circle, and would fight fires for them covered in gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how much I believe in them. But they're all entrepreneurs. They're all self-starters. They all have that belief that we will win. We're going to see this through.
Mm-hmm. Perseverance and gratitude. It seems
Absolutely.
to be.
Absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Well, Jason, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, and I appreciate you giving us your story here. And hopefully, now that this is on the record, somebody coming up and can hear this, and maybe they can see further.
One thing that I'll leave you with, and Brian, I really appreciate you asking me to do this, and I applaud you for taking the initiative to do a podcast like this. Hats off to you, buddy. You know how I feel about you.
Thank you. Yes,
absolutely. You're a really awesome person, and kudos to you for doing this. But I gave a commencement speech one time it was at my alma mater in my high school, and at the very end, I always tell people, if you ever got questions and you don't have anywhere to turn to me. I'll do my best to help you. And I guess if there's one thing that I could do in return to, for the fortune, the good fortune that I've been given throughout life with good relationships and good mentors, reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, I am the world's easiest target.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you do have questions or there's something that maybe resonates with you through this podcast, reach out to me. If I can't help you, I will do my best to find somebody who can. And that's where networking comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how things go.
Absolutely. And that's how we are here. Is I got to know you in business, and it's all about networking, and in the end, I'm hoping that everybody will benefit. Well, anyone who needs to will benefit from the stories that are told.
Absolutely, stories play a vital role, a huge role in everybody's lives. Whether you read it, you listen to it, in various forms. Stories, even through books, even if you read a book about stories, there's something that you can gain or grasp from everyone and build your own way. Find your own way, your path. Because everybody's path's different.
Amen to that. Well, Jason, again, I want to thank you for coming on, and hopefully sometime in the future you might come back on.
Absolutely. All you got to do is call me, tell me when, and I'm there. my only caveat to that is we've got to go back to Reed's Barbecue.
We'll do it, man. We'll do it.
We have talked about that for too long, and we've got to make that happen soon. So, but Brian, again, I can't thank you enough, buddy. You're a great resource for the community, and kudos again for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. And if you would, just let people know how they can find your content and reach out to you.
Sure. If it's Resident News Network, you can go to residentnewsnetwork.com. All of our social media platforms are up at the top or at the bottom. There's also a contact form. You can reach me through there. That's probably the easiest way. That email will get to me personally. Other than that, you can. We're all over. But personally, again, I'm on all social media channels. I'm not always on them, so that's why I'm saying go to residentnewsnetwork.com. and go through those channels. It will get to me quicker and more efficiently.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Brian, I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks again for your time, and thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too, sir.